Hey guys, Jack's your free auto mechanic. Today we're going to tackle the radiator on this Jeep Wrangler. We're going to take a look at our radiator. Let's go ahead and pull it up out of the box. And looks like it's packed in there pretty good. Nice foam corners. Make sure you're not damaging anything. Oh wow. I like the hardware for installing the brackets. They've got it plugged off so nothing's going to get inside of it. You wouldn't think it, but those little critters get into places that aren't blocked off. That's nice to know. We've got a protective cardboard on either side of the air fins, the cooling fins. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. That'll make a lot of mechanics happy right there. So these are different sizes. You can put these in, and that's of course if you've got a use for either you have automatic cooling going through here or your power steering cooler running through it. But yeah, wow, this is a pretty good looking radiator. So we also got some paperwork, some maintenance. Might want to review that. We'll check that out later. Put that to the side. I'm pretty pleased with the way it looks. It looks like it will fit. I've already done some measuring and looked at them, and this is going to work. You might need a few extra tools. I'll show you which ones I use during the install. We got our radiator provided by DWVO. Thanks guys. And some antifreeze, some clamps, stuff like that, rags. So let's go ahead and get after it. We've located our valve right here. You want to make sure you've got your drain pan directly underneath before you crack it loose. While we're waiting for the antifreeze to continue to drain out of the radiator, you can go ahead and remove your upper radiator hose completely, or just the one hose clamp attached to the radiator, whatever's easiest for you to do. And then after that, you want to start removing the bolts that hold the fan shroud on. So for the radiator hose, you're going to need an 8mm or flat blade. For the fan shroud, you're going to need an 11mm. And while you're at it, grab the 10, because you're going to need the 10 for the radiator itself. And now we're going to need to remove the fan shroud. They've got 11mm bolts, and along with it, we need to remove the radiator overflow tank. So we'll need to disconnect this hose, and we can lift this up out of there. It just comes up off of these slides. Up and away. Now that we've got our overflow removed, that'll give us access to the two bolts. One's here and one's down here. They're 11mm, so we'll take those out next. Well, that was a little tough. So what I'm going to do is spray some WD-40 on the back side of it. And here's what I mean by on the back side. If you look down in there, you can see the screw sticking out. Right down in there. Right down there. That's what you want to spray. Just a little bit, and it should come right out of there. And of course, once you got those two removed on the driver's side, you do the same thing on the passenger side. I'll show you those. And we're looking at this bolt here and the one just below it. Once you have all the bolts removed from the fan shroud, then you want to go ahead and move it forward as close to the engine as possible. This will give you better access to all your radiator mounting bolts. And it looks like there's 3 on this side and 3 on this side, 10 millimeters. But before I get too anxious and go yanking the radiator out of there, I got to remember my lower radiator hose is still attached and our petcock valve is still open on the bottom of the radiator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the petcock valve. I'm going to slide my drain pan over to the right side, under the driver's side, underneath the radiator hose, and I'm going to disconnect that. All right, here's our lower radiator hose. We'll just go ahead and remove that clamp. Go ahead and remove the hose. Shouldn't have too much coming out of it. After all, we drained it completely. And we still have all our antifreeze right here. Now we can jump on those 10 millimeter bolts holding in this radiator. I'm going to go ahead and spray some WD-40 on the back sides of these bolts. Every little bit helps. It's a good idea to check your condenser before you put your radiator in. Any kind of debris or anything in there that you can get out of the way ahead of time, it's a good time to do it. The next thing we're going to do is throw the radiator in. We'll just set it down in there the same way we took it out. Put our bolts in, button it up. So as I was getting ready to install the radiator, I noticed that my bolts wouldn't line up. That leaves us with one more step that we need to do. We either need to swap this bracket or we need to drill holes in the new bracket. The bolt holes are 24 on center on the old radiator. And if we go to the new radiator, that would be back here. So we can either drill holes in this bracket or we can swap the old bracket. And the odds are the bolts on the old radiator are going to be old, rusty, bad. Just get a drill out and a drill bit. It probably won't take you a few minutes. So I thought I'd give it a test just to see. Yeah, just spinning here too. So if you get lucky enough, you might be able to swap out your your bracket from the other one. And of course, you could cut those bolts off if you needed to, I suppose. But I think we'll just cut holes in the new one. So I'm about to show you the difference between a parts changer and being a mechanic. Parts changer would have to send this back to the manufacturer whining about this bracket not fitting correctly. Mechanic sees that he can make it fit and get the customer back his vehicle. So he's going to go ahead and fix it and install it. And I'm going to go ahead and drill holes in this. You want to make sure that you have wood behind it so that you're not bending the bracket. You want to have wood support underneath of it so that your pressure is just on this piece and not on the radiator tanks itself, because you don't want to cause any damage to the rest of the product. And then you're going to measure twice. And if I had one, I'd use a drift pin and put a spot. But I'm going to start with a smaller drill bit, and then I'll work my way up to a 3/8, and we'll drill holes in the correct location, and then we'll get this thing installed. Now we've got our pilot hole. We can switch over to our 3/8. Beautiful. Now we'll just do the same thing to our other two holes. A couple of things before we install this radiator. We did drill our holes on the other side, which is great. So we're ready for mounting. We've checked them. Everything works perfect. We want to turn it over. If you have air conditioning, you'll want to push this tab in. This will allow your AC condenser lines to run through here. Now, another thing that's really important, since we already know that our bracket over here was off, we want to double check our positioning for our fan shroud. I'm going to set it in here. We're going to line up our holes, and best practice would be to install your 2 bolts on this side. That's going to line up your shroud so your fan blades don't hit, and then it'll allow you to drill new holes where they need to be in this bracket on this side. So we'll go ahead and mark those holes. I will point out that your factory bolts have the fan shroud on. They do not screw in. These bolts are a little heavy, a little thicker than normal. The way they're designed, you should cut in if you've got enough force. So if you've got an impact and you can push pressure on there, they'll screw right in. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to take care of it. This is what I'm going to do. I don't have an impact wrench with me here, or I would use that. But I put some boards under this. This is to keep from bending the bracket. And just like butter. Now we've got our threaded holes. Then we'll want to do the same thing to our other one. The bolt in there, enough to make a cut. Trying to keep enough force for it to bite. Once you get your fan shroud bolted up, and you'll know exactly where everything's lined up, then you can go ahead and mark your holes. Get you an 11/64 drill bit, drill your holes out, and then we'll go through the same procedure where we smack them with a hammer and then pre-thread them, tighten the bolts up, and then we should be ready to install. After a quick test fit, I found the edge of this bracket right here rubbing my steering column. Slide it down in there, it rubs right against that steering column, right on that spot, so we can't have that. So it doesn't look like it, doesn't appear to be rubbing too much, but it does set right on it, which is eventually going to wear the paint off of this. Now you could take a grinder, grind that, and then repaint it, but no more than it's rubbing. I think you could just bend it, the tab a little, which is what I'm going to do. Now with our holes drilled in the right place, we can go ahead and set it down in there and bolt it up. Everything goes back together in reverse order. And like I mentioned before, let's go ahead and get all our bolts started ahead of time before we tighten them up. Now that we've got our radiator installed, our next step is going to be to top off our coolant and bleed the air out of the system. But before we do that, I want to decide whether I'm going to reuse my antifreeze or replace it with new. With the cost of new coolant, it might be worth picking up one of these testers. You just stick it in there. And then we'll read the gauge. So you can see it. It looks dirty, but it's good to 20 below zero. Coldest it's gotten around here in a while has been minus 14 degrees, and that only happened once in my lifetime. So I think we're pretty safe with this coolant. Once you get your coolant level topped off, you'll need to allow it to set for about 7 minutes as per the manual. That'll let the coolant flow down through all the little passages and get where it needs to go. And at that point, you want to put the cap back on. And then you're going to run the engine at 2,000 RPM for 3 to 4 minutes. And at the same time, when you're doing that, you want to have your temperature set to heat, and you want to have it on max. So as high as the fan will blow, that's what you want to have for the 3 to 4 minutes. And then when you're done, go ahead and shut that off. And with the engine off, that's when you can go ahead and check your coolant level, and you want to fill it completely to the full mark. And then you should be good to go. Quick overview of the product and a review and thoughts. It wasn't too difficult to put in for myself. If you're not real comfortable using a drill bit, you may want to search a little further for a more expensive radiator. This might not be the style for you. For myself, it's installed, it's functional, everything works. I did have to do a couple of little extra steps. So if you're doing an install for someone as a customer, you might want to add a few extra minutes of time onto your quote. Thanks for watching.